Georgia. Incredible mountains, forests, rivers, sea, and of course delicious food. Today we will walk through the whole Batumi, look at stunning architecture, take off to the mountains, be in the clouds, catch some sunshine on a black beach, try the famous Georgian cuisine, and much more that is simply impossible to fit in a short announcement. So sit back and relax as we get started. But first of all, we somehow have to get there. So let's board the plane and fly to Istanbul, where we have a layover so long that I could even take a walk around the city. Despite the wonderful walk, I was also fortunate to visit a business lounge, or as I like to say, the VIP room, which is located in Istanbul airport. This is the Sky Team Lounge. Right in the center there is a bar counter, with many different drinks and ice. Nearby you can find a buffet with a variety of warm dishes, salads and desserts. There is a conference room and cozy seats. Overall, as a unique experience, it's okay. After all this, let's board the flight again, but this time to Batumi. After getting closer to Georgia, you will notice towering mountains. No wonder they are the calling card of Georgia. Let's have a look at the map. The whole northern part of Georgia is occupied by the main Caucasian range, where the Nino landform is clearly expressed, mainly caused by glaciers many years ago. In the south, near Batumi, lies the Lesser Caucasus, whereas the western part of the country is primarily located on the Caucasus lowland, which also borders the Black Sea. The total length of the coastline is about 310 kilometers. Thanks to its interesting geography, Georgia has an equally interesting climate. I arrived in Georgia in early June. Usually summer here is warm and humid. And this is not surprising, since along the Black Sea coast a humid subtropical climate prevails. The main Caucasian range serves as a barrier to cold northern winds, and the northern part of Georgia is influenced by a temperate climate. Around 1,600 mm of precipitation falls each year, and the winter here is usually mild and warm. I am in Georgia. And first of all, let's see Batumi. It is a bit dark, but how good is that this is a video, so we can do this and continue our journey. Batumi is the third largest city in the country, the history of which goes back more than 1 millennium, as the first information about Batumi dates back to the 4th century BC from Aristotle. The medieval history of Batumi is pretty much unremarkable. It was a small fortified town, but during Russian rule, Batumi became the main port on the border between Europe and Asia. In 1878, the city's population was about 5,000 people. Then, starting from 1920, Batumi, as well as the whole of Georgia, was in the USSR until 1991. At that moment, Batumi's population was about 136,000 people. And now, Batumi is one of the most beautiful cities on the coast of the Black Sea. From Miracle Park, you can see almost everything this city is famous for. Architecture. Behind me is the Alphabetic Tower. On the double spiral that looks like DNA, the letters of the Georgian alphabet are placed. On top of this 135-meter high tower, you will find a restaurant that also works as an observation deck. Attention, attention! Going up by the lift costs a mind-blowing 10 Georgian lari. Ladies and gentlemen, this is out of my pocket. But I have an alternative idea. Here you can also see the Batumi Lighthouse and the 55-meter high Ferris wheel. Right next to the shore is the Ali and Nino sculpture. At first glance, there is nothing interesting, but it is moving! Inspired by the eponymous novel, Georgian artist and sculptor Tamara Kositadze designed this 8-meter statue, whose characters make a full turn in 10 minutes. This sculpture is also known as the Statue of Love. A little further south, we will see Chacha Tower. Not many years ago, the Georgian drink Chacha flowed from this fountain once a week for 10 to 15 minutes. For free! It is a pommes spirit, by the way. But 10 years ago, in 2015, this was shut down, so now there is pretty much nothing to do here. Let's move on. This 7-kilometer boulevard is filled with cafes, restaurants, shops and lovely fountains. At the same time, a huge variety of plants grow here. In some ways, it is a real park. Despite the cloudy sky that day, the weather was still hot. I would even say stuffy. The only salvation I found was this pier. On the pier, it is so comfy, with a chilly sea breeze. If you are walking around Batumi, come here, you won't regret it. Probably you have already noticed many beautiful high-rises in the background. Let's have a closer look at them. This is the Courtyard by Marriott Batumi. Nearby is the no less beautiful building of Batumi's public service hall. In Porta Batumi Tower, you will find flats for any taste. And right opposite is a casino and, at the same time, a Radisson Blu hotel. Hidden amongst the shadows of the busy city, under the towers in the sky, is one of the most beautiful McDonald's in the world. The exterior of the building is a geometric frame of glass. The entire McDonald's has panoramic views thanks to the lack of walls as such. Its grand, bizarre, space-looking shapes look especially good at night. Here you can enjoy the fresh air, a huge fascinating flower bed that is decorated differently depending on the seasons, and of course a huge lines of people. And the fact that under the building's canopy there is also a gas station actually amuses me. The architect of this building, completed in 2012, is Georgian Maladze. If somehow you are still not impressed by Batumi's architecture, just have a look at this world's first ever skyscraper with a Ferris wheel on the facade, installed on the 27th floor at a height of 100 meters. At first, in this 200-meter high-rise, which does not even fit in the frame. According to the project, the Black Sea Technological University was supposed to be located, but it never opened. For several years, this 36-story building, also built in 2012, was vacant, until it was sold at auction in 2015. The new owner decided to equip a residential complex as well as the 5-star Le Méridien Batumi Hotel, with a casino, spa center, restaurants and so on. No matter how beautiful the center is, residential areas, as in most cases, leave much to be desired. To be fair, these are quite nice. On the old, slowly falling apart houses, residents are simply increasing their living space. In fact, the so-called squatter is a very common phenomenon in Georgia. Walking and looking at these inimitable design solutions is quite interesting to some extent. It's not a house, but a constructor. But as you know, there are always exceptions. Summer 365 is Batumi's most high-demanded and most comfortable place to live, chosen by residents who want everyday ease, not just a holiday vibe. Set in the fast-developing New Boulevard district in western Batumi, this new, thoughtfully designed business-class complex brings the modern city within a city concept to life. Beyond well-planned apartments, Summer 365 puts everything at your door. Shops, offices, restaurants, a pharmacy, a cinema and more. At the heart of it, all is a vast, green, car-free courtyard with children's playgrounds and dedicated zones for focused work and quiet meditation. The complex is due for completion in 2026. If you're considering a smart real estate purchase, Summer 365 is the ideal choice. Choose your apartment at the link in the description. The best way to see this colossal difference in city development is to take a ride on the Argo Cable Car. It ascends through the whole city and ends on the top of the nearest hill. It takes about 10 minutes to get up here. What about tickets? Yes, I'm 12 years old now. On top you will find a souvenir shop and cafe, as well as a fantastic viewpoint from where a stunning view of Batumi opens. After going downstairs, you can walk through the glade or sit on a bench. Eventually, darkness fell, and it means that now we have an incredible opportunity to admire the night views of Batumi. The best possible way to enjoy these marvelous views is, of course, from above. Next step was to go to a town called Kobuleti. Seemingly, the distance of only 26 kilometers from Batumi, the ride should take about 25 minutes, but in reality, all 40. Overall, the road runs along the sea coast and only slightly touches the hills. On one of these hills lies Petra fortress, to which we will come a bit later. In brief, Kobuleti is the second largest city after Batumi in Nizara, where 20,000 people live. Already since the 1910s, Kobuleti has acted as an appealing resort, and by the way now, Kobuleti and Batumi are the two main competitors on the Georgia's coastline. It is necessary to mention the unique layout of this town. There are only 3 main streets, lying parallel to each other and to the sea. The town center is also located in the southern part of Kobuleti, and not in the actual center. There you can find the Kobuleti Agri-Market, which offers seasonal fruits and berries, vegetables, spices, sauces, jams and more. You can find almost everything here. A truly fantastic place to stock up on various delicious souvenirs to take home. So I did. Oh. In my studio I have such a Churchella. Of course, after finishing this B-roll, there won't be any, but that's a completely different story. Generally, between the spots I moved along the seafront promenade. You can walk along it for 2 to 3 hours in one direction. It seems just completely endless. In southern part, the embankment is a bit raised above the beach level, and then gradually decreases until ground level meets the beach in the central part of Kobuleti. Along the whole length of the promenade, as befits, there are a lot of cafes and restaurants. As you may have already noticed, the beach in Kobuleti is covered in pebbles of various sizes, from grains to cobblestones. This might be a huge downside for somebody, but not for everybody. Just have a look at this magnificent mosaic completely made of local pebbles. Simply, on a public beach, without any fences, an unknown artist made a Van Gogh's The Starry Night-inspired mosaic. Absolutely unbelievable! Right next to it, there is another work of art. I cannot even imagine how much time was spent creating these works. And above the water, I can see that in the middle of June it had already warmed up to 25 degrees Celsius. To be honest, it is definitely not the clearest one. Visibility is about a meter, but at least the depth is actually pretty close, no more than 10 meters from the shore. This is very nice in comparison with our next destination. Ureki, which is in the Georgia's Guria region, is a small town of just about 1,000 residents. It's at 60 kilometers north of Batumi, with only a handful of asphalted streets. Life here moves at its own pace. Even cows stroll calmly through the fields around the town. On the coast and across the road from it are several dozen hotels, alternating with residential buildings. However, Ureki is considered one of the most popular seaside resorts of Georgia, largely thanks to its sands. We all know about the fine white sand, but how about black sand? The resort is known for its magnetic dark gray sands, which are believed to have medicinal properties. Black sands, as well as magnetic ones, are not particularly unique phenomena in themselves. The dark color is found, for example, on the beaches of the Philippines. Magnetic sands are used for treatment in Bulgaria and on the Kamchatka Peninsula. But this combination of magnetic properties and dark gray color is unique not only to Georgia, but to the whole world. I would like to add that after all these pebble beaches, this sand is just a gift for your feet. But only if it weren't that hot! Walking barefoot on black sand that has been lying in the sun all day is simply impossible. It feels like walking in an oven! Most of the time, there were waves in the sea. After all that, it was the perfect time to eat. During my stay in Georgia, I have already tasted many dishes of Georgian cuisine. For example, hinkali. These are twisted knobs of dough, stuffed with spiced meat and herbs. A characteristic feature of the dish is the presence of broth inside the hinkali. I can't fail to mention hachapuri, a Georgian cheese-filled bread. There are several distinctive types: acharuli hachapuri, emaruli hachapuri, and megruli hachapuri. Overall, for every taste and color. Personally, I enjoy the acharuli hachapuri the most. Also, winemaking is widespread in Georgia. Wine is drunk here often and in large quantities. This, for example, is a 20-liter jar of homemade wine, and that's just a small part of all the supplies. Oh, and I completely forgot about the beloved soft drink Darkuna and Borjomi mineral water, which also originate from Georgia. After drinking Borjomi, I headed to the previously mentioned Petra fortress. By the way, Georgians do not really bother with the emphasis, so you can often hear it as a Petra fortress. Originally, Petra was a fortified city on a rock slope on the eastern coast of the Black Sea. In the 6th century, it served as an important Eastern Roman outpost in the Caucasus, and due to its strategic location, became a battleground of the Lazic War. In the ruins of the citadel, a bath, water cistern and several other structures have survived. Today, at the cliff's edge, there is an observation deck, under which lies a breathtaking railroad. Next on the agenda was Mtirala National Park, located just 25 kilometers from Batumi. Although the road was quite narrow, it lies through the rivers, and I can even say through jungles. The park's name, as well as Mount Mtirala located on its territory, translates from Georgian as crying. This is due to an unreal amount of precipitation. Around 4,500 millimeters of rain falls here every year. That's 4.5 meters a year. Of course, this makes it the most humid region in the whole of Europe. In total, the park has two routes. One is 3 kilometers, marked in yellow, and the other one is 15 kilometers. I would love to hike the longer one, but unfortunately I did not have the time. In both cases, first we will need to use this extraordinary river crossing. For the price of 4 lari per person, return, you get this small gondola-like cart on manual traction. And now only up. The catch is that this climb continues for all 1.5 kilometers. Here you are in real jungles. Look, it just started raining. Everything is covered with greenery, ferns, but at the same time, coniferous trees also grow here. Up ahead, the path splits. One trail leads to the lake, the other to the waterfall. We decided to see the waterfall first. This is a 10-meter height sublunary waterfall. Actually, both the waterfall and the lake are places where you can swim. To tell the truth, I would not risk swimming here, so let's check out the lake. And here it is. A nice bonus is that the water here is not ice cold, as it usually is. Of course, it's cold, around 11 degrees Celsius, but it's perfect to cool down after a hike. Well, if it were not for the video, I wouldn't have done it. After I came back to the shop, I realized that I had not filmed anything underwater at all, so I had to swim again. I hope it was not in vain. In addition, beekeeping is well developed in this national park. This means you can easily buy fresh honey from local guest houses or along the road, usually about 20 to 25 lari per kilogram. And before we continue our journey, I suggest you take one more look at this gorgeous park. Mtirala National Park is 6,000 hectares of fascinating subtropical nature with mineral streams, hailing springs, waterfalls and lakes. Alright, now it is the time to move on, or rather to climb, because now we are going to Bakhmaro mountain. During the ride I noticed that locals' driving etiquette is completely different from ours. Take for example horns. We are used to using a horn rarely, only when needed. But here it is an entire culture. With this simple sound, local drivers can greet or thank each other, give way or inform about something. Honestly, even after all my rides, I could not fully understand what exactly each honk meant. Meanwhile, we are leaving the first part of the road, which is honestly built very well. You're just ride and enjoy. All this is so beautiful that you go into mesmerized mode when the camera simply does not turn off. A short stop to fly a drone and taste the mineral spring. It tastes good, and at that exact moment, a cloud just seized us. Fellas, it feels like I'm in an aviary with pterosaurs from Jurassic Park. Then the dirt road began. And after driving a little further, leaving the cloud, I was met by an incredibly beautiful valley. It is absolutely pulchritudinous. There is still snow here, even though it is mid-June. At such an altitude, trees can no longer grow. As a result, the summit is covered exclusively by fields. We have arrived! Bakhmaro is not just a village, but a true climatic resort. It is famed for its crystal clear mountain air, carried here by a breeze from the Black Sea and mingling with alpine atmosphere. Breathing it in feels refreshing and is even believed to strengthen the immune system. Local travel agencies claim that just 21 days spent here can shield you from illness for an entire year. Sometimes this unique blend transforms into a thick, cotton-like mist. That's why Bakhmaro is often called the Kingdom of Clouds. And today we are lucky enough to witness exactly that. Also, the village is known for its A-frame cottages, raised on a wooden basis to a height of about 3 meters. It is worth mentioning that all this lies on a mountain 2 kilometers high. In one of these houses I was fortunate to be. It is a small 2-story building, where up to 3 people can live. On the first floor there is a small kitchen with a fridge and a table, and the living room, which unfortunately was rather cluttered. On the second floor you will find 3 beds, while the windows offer nice views. It would not be amiss to say that although Bakhmaro is considered a resort, you won't find typical infrastructure here. There is a pedestrian bridge, which I'm walking on now, but the road bridge is missing. So if you need to go to the other side of this village, be ready to ride across the river. During our ride across the river, we lost our license plate, but huge shout out to this horseman who pulled it out for us. You have probably already noticed that the weather is different in most of the shots. When I arrived here, it was very sunny and clear, but just a bit later, thick clouds came. Fortunately, after about half an hour, the clouds lifted a little, so I still managed to capture, well, at least some kind of Bakhmaro. Here is a small rain. Everything is flooded. Everything. I think it is time to make some sort of conclusion. In 10 days, Georgia showed me a lot. Here you can find a warm sea and cool mountains, beautiful developing cities and small resort villages. If you decide to go to Georgia in early June, be ready for cloudy weather, since during all 10 days only 3 of them were actually sunny. Of course, there are advantages of the off-season. In the streets, as well as on the tourist sites, beaches and the city overall, there are far fewer people. I'm sure you are all aware that it is impossible to convey through a camera all the atmosphere and beauty that you need to see with your own eyes. So travel! Come to Georgia and you will remember it as a friendly and extremely welcoming country.